Hey guys, Spudknocker here, as always. And yesterday I was very surprised to open up my email and find a message waiting for me from Mr. Matt Wagner, the senior producer over at Eagle Dynamics, allowing me early access to the P-47D Thunderbolt and the channel map in a preview build of DCS. Now, I was very surprised and very shocked. This really did come kind of out of the blue for me, because I had thought that the P-47 and the channel map were coming much further down the road here. But I am very happy and very honored to be included, to be able to show off some early footage of the P-47 and the channel map for you guys at home. Now, of course, the P-47 is an iconic fighter and ground attack aircraft from World War II. She flew with many Allied air forces, most notably the Royal Air Force, the U.S. Army Air Forces, the Mexican Air Force, the Brazilian Air Force, and others as well. She also flew and fought with distinction from the Pacific to the CBI to Western Europe, the Eastern Front, and other places as well. The only major theater in which the P-47 did not fly and fight was the Alaskan theater. So it is very cool to have this aircraft here in DCS. A lot of people are really going to like flying the P-47 because she can take a beating from both the enemy and her own pilot. The big radial engine in this aircraft allows the pilot to really push this engine hard without having to worry about blowing up, overheating, or stressing the engine the way you would in an inline water-cooled engine such as in the P-51 Mustang or Spitfire. So let's take a quick kind of look around the aircraft just by panning with the mouse here, because it is really pretty. And the airfield itself and the detail that's on the airfields in the channel map is quite amazing, such as small details like the oil stains on the pad at which we're sitting right now. I mean, Eagle Dynamics really didn't have to add that, but it is something that is incredibly realistic and very cool. A little tip: if you're ever at a very cool air museum that houses flyable warbirds, you can tell which airplanes are actually airworthy or semi-airworthy or in the process of becoming airworthy by which aircraft actually have drip pans collecting oil underneath the engine or cowling areas. So I guess the ground crew forgot to put out the drip pans here on this airfield. So let's take a look at the F10 map and just kind of do a little overview of what this video is going to be. Because we're both showing off the P-47 and the channel map, I wanted to give you guys kind of a bird's eye view of the channel map itself. It is pretty big for a World War II map. It stretches about 160 nautical miles from corner to corner of the map. It is kind of a little bit of an elongated square-ish kind of shape for its high detail area, and it will be able to be used from a lot of different time periods within World War II, all the way from the very start of the war into the Battle of Britain and into the late war periods, ending right at about the end of 1944 when most of France was pretty much liberated. And so we get the Dunkirk areas, we get the Cliffs of Dover areas, a lot of very iconic places. So we're going to take off here from our airbase at Hawkinge, and we're going to fly around the White Cliffs of Dover to give you guys a look at that iconic landscape feature. We're going to come around, we're going to engage in some dogfighting with some FW-190s on this side of the channel, here over the area of Boulogne. Simmer down there, and we'll then go up here and see if we can find some trains or maybe even some U-boats in some harbors around here to shoot at as well. So it'll be pretty cool, and then we'll come on back and make a landing. Now, it is not normal for a P-47 to use a grass airstrip, as we see here. That is kind of a feature of early Battle of Britain RAF bases, in which you can really take off in almost any direction on this field. P-47s were usually too heavy for this, and so therefore they'd go for paved runways or Marston matting, steel matting airfields. But for the sake of this video and showing off the channel map for you guys, I really wanted to show off this grass airstrip because it is very cool. And I don't know if you guys can hear it in the background here, but there are ambient sounds within this map, such as distant engine sounds, sounds from doors opening and closing, things like that, that really make the map kind of feel alive. And it makes me think that maybe Eagle Dynamics has some things waiting for us in the future in terms of really bringing airfields to life. The detail on this airfield is pretty darn cool. But let's go ahead and hop in the P-47's office and get started. because she's got a very, very cool and pretty cockpit, that's for sure. So, here we are in the office of the P-47D Thunderbolt, and I'm sure you guys know out at home there that starting a radial engine like we have here in the P-47 can be kind of a difficult affair even under the most ideal of circumstances. So let's go ahead and get right into it. So first thing we're going to do here is we're going to go ahead and flip the battery on. We're going to go ahead and turn our generator on. We're going to go ahead and set our fuel tank to the main tank. We'll turn on both our left and right magnetos, that's very important. And next we'll go ahead and unsecure our priming pump over here on the right. And we'll just do a quick peruse around the cockpit, make sure we're good to go. Gear handles down, flaps are up. Want to make sure we get our RPM lever in the full RPM position. We'll go ahead and lock our tail wheel to start off here, just to make sure we don't end up going in circles or anything like that. And next we'll go ahead and unlock our ADI. And we'll go ahead and start our engine now. So we'll go ahead and give it some prime with 6 pumps on the priming pump here. And now we'll go ahead and start up the engine. Now, there is something you have to keep in mind here when starting the P-47. You have to first put the starter into the engage position to engage the bushings that will actually turn the start motor and engage it on the flywheel of the crankshaft of the engine. Next, we have to go down into the energize position. We're going to hold this for about 15 seconds. We're going to open up our throttle about an inch to allow fuel flow. And we'll go ahead and engage the starter. We're going to keep it going. We're going to keep the starter going until we have the engine completely turned on. We can go ahead and release the starter at this point. And as you can see, that was a bit more involved than starting up the P-51 Mustang that we're pretty much all used to at this point. We can see our hydraulic pressure is coming up as our flaps start to retract, because we do have our flaps in the retracted position. We're going to go ahead and make sure that we're holding our stick back. You can kind of put your arm around your stick at this point to kind of help you keep it back there. We're going to make sure we have our toe brakes engaged. And at this point, we're going to go ahead and close our canopy and taxi on out. Interestingly enough, the P-47D has a motorized canopy. That is something that I really didn't know prior to jumping into the P-47 here in DCS. And that's kind of a cool little thing to kind of figure out there. So we'll go ahead and recage our ADI, uncage it. And we'll go ahead and bring it down to the actual horizon, because keep in mind here in a tail dragger, our attitude is actually pretty far up at the moment because of our tail wheel back there. So we'll go ahead and start taxiing out to the grass field out there. We'll advance the throttle nice and slow. Make sure we have it in manual RPM mode. We'll apply some differential braking. There is a Quonset hut out in front of us here that we don't want to hit, because these maps are so detailed, or these airfields are so detailed. You really want to make sure you're not going to hit anything unintentionally. Have to be very careful around these very highly detailed airports. There we go. We're definitely not going to hit that Quonset hut. Alright, we're going to go ahead and hold our wheel brakes. while we do some checks in the cockpit here, we're going to make sure our oil temperature is coming up. So in order to ensure our oil temperature comes up, because it is currently closed, we're going to go ahead and close our oil cooler. There we go. And once we get our oil temperature to come up, then we'll go ahead and bring the oil cooler into a neutral position. We'll just kind of run up a bit here. And slowly starting to climb, which is good. Now keep in mind here that oil temperature is very important here in a radial engined aircraft, because we need to make sure the oil is at a viscosity at which it can flow from the bottom cylinders up to the top cylinders. In a radial engined aircraft, when it's been sitting on the ground parked, like say overnight or something like that, a lot of that very viscous cool oil pools in the bottom cylinders, and you really got to make sure that the oil is able to flow throughout the entire engine efficiently and well. Now the cockpit does look quite a bit more complicated than that in the P-51 Mustang, and I think that is kind of due to the very beautiful art that has been done in the cockpit of the P-47, as well as the fact that the cockpit is just simply different than the P-51. We're seeing our engine, or our oil temperature climbing. Our cylinder head temperature is getting a little high, so we're going to go ahead and open up our cowling flaps, and we can see them just slowly opening in order to cool our cylinder heads. And in the interest of time, we're just going to go ahead and take on off here. We're going to go ahead and recage our ADI. We're going to hold our stick back. We've got our RPM lever all the way forward. And we'll go ahead and advance the throttle. Just applying some slight right rudder. We'll start bringing the tail up. And let her fly off. Nice and gently. Bring the gear up. And we'll start just a gentle climb and turn off to the right to get over to the cliffs of Dover to show you guys. I'm going to keep bringing my cowl flaps to the open position. My cylinder head temperature is a little bit on the higher side. It did cool from what we had in the run-up down there, which is to be expected as we get more airflow through the cowling of the engine. Keep an eye on our turn coordinator there. It was applying a little bit too much right rudder. And as you can see, our ADI in the P-47 really isn't all that useful. If you do have to fly through a cloud layer or something of that nature, you want to make sure you cage it, get it as close to the horizon as you possibly can, then uncage it and only trust it for a certain amount of time. And we can see some of the white cliffs of Dover off to our left. We'll kind of bring it on over here. And as I stated before, what's very cool about the P-47 is a lot of you guys will be able to fly it and push it to its absolute maximum without having to worry too much about the actual engine itself. As many people will attest to, warbird pilots, World War II veterans, etc., in the P-51 you fly the engine, not the airplane. In the P-47 you can fly the airplane rather than flying the engine. And the water is just very, very beautiful. It almost looks tropical, which seems a little bit strange for the coast of England, but it is very pretty nonetheless. And we can see we're already coming up to about 300 miles per hour. The P-47, she can't turn very well, but she can get up and go when you want her to. And as you can see, we are just abusing the heck out of the engine right now, just keeping it at full RPM. We are keeping the manifold pressure in the green. There's a little port area. So we pass up onto the White Cliffs of Dover area. And the warbirds, you just need to be gentle on the controls. You can't abuse them like you can an F-16 or an F-18 with an FCS in it. You just got to be smooth and gentle. If you take care of them, they'll take care of you. That's for sure. Alright, our cylinder head temperature is down to a more manageable place, so we can go ahead and close the cowling flaps a little bit. Keep in mind here that having the cowling flaps open does increase drag. And we can see our cylinder head temperature down there has already climbed right back up. The P-47's engine does have quite a few automated features to it that are not present in the P-51's Merlin engine. And for cruise, you can actually put it into a automatic constant speed position, in which you really don't have to worry about the engine at all. The cockpit of the P-47, in my opinion, just looks like it's a war machine. You know, it looks rough and tough. We can see the transparency of the water as we come back down towards our airbase. It's a very cool feature. It might be a little bit too transparent, in my opinion. It looks a little too tropical, if you had to say something, but it is a very cool feature. And I'm sure it'll be fun to hunt U-boats looking into the water, or looking at them at periscope depth. So why don't we fly up this valley here and take a look at the city of Dover. And there was a bit of a graphical issue and artifact there as we were flying low over the water. And these cities are just magnificently detailed. As you get further and further and further to the stops of the throttle, you start to get undulations in the RPM and the manifold pressure. Alrighty guys, so enough of this. Why don't we get into some combat and show the P-47 blowing some stuff up, because I know that's what you guys care about most. Alrighty guys, here we are with a flight of P-47s flying down the coast of France. Out in front of us is the city of Dunkirk. And we've got our cylinder head temperatures getting a little bit high, so we'll go ahead and open up our cowling flaps and get some more airflow over those cylinders. And we can already see that cylinder head temperature starting to decrease, which is exactly what we want. And I tried earlier to bring you guys a bit of a dogfight between a bunch of P-47s and some FW-190 Antons, because I find that the Anton is the best airplane to dogfight against in World War II aircraft against the AI. However, it just really wasn't happening. The AI is just really so unflyable against in World War II airplanes that I just really couldn't bring it to you guys. But we are going to go for some ground attack against, hopefully we can find a train out here, or potentially find a harbor full of U-boats or something of that nature. You can really hear the pretty awesome sounds of our wingmen all around us. Looks like our cylinder head temperature is looking better, so we'll go ahead and close the flaps a little bit. We can now see the city of Dunkirk off to our left. Why don't we go ahead and bring it left and fly over the city a little bit. See if we can find any targets of opportunity. Let's go ahead and arm up our guns. Just in case we get jumped by fighters, we'll set our wingspan and our range correctly. And there's the city of Dunkirk for you. This will be a very cool map because we can go from right at the beginning of the war with the Dunkirk evacuation all the way through into late 1944 when the Germans were finally pushed out. We can do hunting for V2 launch sites. Excuse me, V1 launch sites. And lots of other cool stuff on this map. And beautiful city of Dunkirk back there. Go ahead and push the throttle up, increase our airspeed a bit. Just so you guys get an idea of where we are, let's go ahead and take a look at the map. We can see this is where we started off. And here's Dunkirk. Not too far of a flight, but it will take a lot longer, of course, in a World War II aircraft that cruises at, you know, roughly about 200, 250 knots. And you guys can really see how much I'm abusing the engine here. But we still got very good engine parameters. And just in a flat sprint, as we're doing now, we can go up pretty fast, about 300 miles per hour. Keeping our eyes peeled for trains or any other targets of opportunity as we fly across the landscape here. Not seeing any smoke from trains yet. The train, of course, is a quintessential target for a P-47. There is a lot of gun camera footage of Thunderbolts attacking trains in France, Belgium, Germany, you name it. Especially in a very fantastic documentary that came out in 2001 called Thunderbolts, The Conquest of the Reich, in which there is numerous footage of Thunderbolts plying their trade against tanks. And looks like we got a train right there. So why don't we go ahead and attack it. There are a bunch of new improvements to the mission editor that come with this map that do really help when it comes to creating trains in your missions and thus engaging trains and making them fun targets to hit. There are, of course, cool targets to find and look out for because they do have that nice big smoke trail and steam trail coming out of them. So we'll bring it around and come on in for a good strafing run. Pull our power back slightly, making sure our RPM is at full forward. RPM lever is forward. Start bringing the power back. Looks like they don't have any flak on board, so that's helpful. And looks like we brought that train to a complete stop. And we're starting to take a little bit of flak, I believe, from this port city out in front of us. Well, why don't we do one more pass on the train here, and then we'll bring it back around and attack the port city that's off to our 6 o'clock. Alright, hopefully we got a field marshal in his executive train car in there. And we'll go ahead and bring it on around and see if we can find some U-boats or Schnell boats in the port city over here. So we'll climb it up a bit to help us out in terms of flak evasion. We definitely stop that train in its tracks. Alright, we still got 2 on our wing. P-47, once you get her trimmed out, because she's so heavy and her engine's so powerful, she's incredibly stable. So right now I'm taking my hand completely off the controls, other than the rudder pedals, and she's able to more or less fly herself. And really pull a nice Pappy Boeington, get some heavy rubber bands, put them across the stick, and take a nice nap on your way across the English Channel. Looks like 4 out there's taking a little bit of flak. And we definitely got some bad guys down there to engage. Kind of use them to keep the flak busy while we engage some targets down here. Looks like they're already shooting at us. Can't really tell what those boats in the port are just yet. Keep jinking around a little bit here. Number 2 still with us. It's like flak is falling into the sea around us. Whoa there.
Flight. Engage air defenses.
Like they're pretty eager to protect those boats down there. And we'll go ahead and roll on in. And perfect timing. We've got the flak on these U-boats. Whoa there. Alright, keep flying unpredictable. We still got tracers coming at us. And it looks like they're shooting at my wingmen over there. It's a perfect distraction in order to come down on these U-boats, which, scratch that, they're definitely still shooting at me. So we may have to kind of circle around a little bit here and potentially extend. They're, of course, very eager to defend those U-boats. And we'll go ahead and roll on in again. They're shooting at, I think that's number 3 out there. We got one AAA unit on the beach down there shooting at us. And we'll extend out over the city, making sure we're flying unpredictably. Oh, Blair, we just got hit. I think we're okay. Probably not the best idea to extend over the city here. Seems to be a lot of guns in the area. Looks like we've got some holes in the wings. But the P-47 brought home a lot of pilots who, if they had been in P-51 Mustangs or in any other type of Allied aircraft, especially a Spitfire, would not have been able to come home. Entire cylinders shot out, rounds taken straight through propeller blades. One pilot even got too low in a strafing run and struck the ground with his prop and was still able to gain altitude and fly on home. A lot of pilots, in fact, criticized the decision by the United States Air Force to send F-51s to Korea rather than F-47s, because the P-51s in Korea were used almost solely for close air support duties and ground attack duties, in which they were ill-suited for because of their inline liquid-cooled engine. P-51 losses in Korea were astoundingly high, and many in the Air Force thought that the Air National Guard and Air Force should have brought their P-47 squadrons to Korea rather than their P-51 squadrons. And we silenced that flak gun. As you guys can see, just abusing the crap out of this engine, and she still flies. No problems. She's a very, very tough aircraft. You can fly the airplane rather than flying the engine, which is something that I think is very attractive to a lot of DCS pilots. Yeah, these U-boats are not happy. We're gonna stay unpredictable as we possibly can. was too close. Should definitely paint some nose art on this plane. Calling myself flak bait, who just got hit.
Alright, so why don't we go ahead and fly on back home to dear old England and make a nice landing back on our home grass airstrip. And we'll go over some kind of first impressions of this P-47. Okay, so here we are, coming back in for an approach back into Hawkinge Airfield. So we can see the beautiful white cliffs of Dover, a very welcome sign for many a pilot flying home from mainland Europe with a damaged and dying aircraft. We'll go ahead and find our airfield here. We'll make a nice break into a landing pattern, and we'll land this sucker. We'll go ahead and safe up our airplane at this point. And I can see Hawkinge over there. We know which way the direction the wind is coming, so even though we can land or take off in any direction at this airport, we are going to follow that windsock and make it easy on ourselves, rather than giving ourselves a crosswind or even tailwind landing. The P-47 definitely handles very well in the landing pattern, and on final, and on touchdown. I think that a lot of people are going to find her to be a lot easier to actually get on the ground and land than, say, the P-51, and especially the Spitfire Mark 9. So we'll go ahead and bring her on back in, lining up our upwind into the break as close as we possibly can to the direction at which we took off, so that way we are with the wind as much as we possibly can. Alright, and coming in the break. Gaining a bit too much altitude, but that's alright. Bring the flaps down. Slowing her down. Flaps are coming down. Gear coming down. We've only had this airplane for less than 24 hours, so hopefully we can make a good landing here. We need to be definitely ahead of the power curve in the P-47 because she will settle very, very quickly. She is heavy. But thankfully, that big radial engine up front can definitely save your life. Not just in combat, but even if you do something stupid around the airport, she can definitely help you out. We're a bit fast, and we're definitely high. So we're going to try and get her to settle down a bit. Going to come right over where we started up. Hopefully we don't clip this barn or its trees. We started up right there off to our left of our nose. Bring her right on down. Just flare gently. Oop, bit of a bounce. Kind of a huge bounce, actually. We'll bring stick all the way back, aft, just gently tapping on the brakes until we bring her to a stop. And there we go. So let's go ahead and taxi her on back. We'll go ahead and open up the canopy. Alright. We'll lock the tail wheel again. And we'll taxi on back. Why don't we bring it up to this big old hangar out in front here. Keeping the stick aft, making sure our tail stays firmly planted on the ground. And there we are, parked right here in front of the hangar, in front of a American truck, it appears to be. And that's all she wrote, folks. I don't know if you guys noticed, you may want to rewind like a minute or so in the video here and maybe throw on some headphones and turn up the volume a bit. But there was a difference between the sound of the wheels rolling over the different types of ground we were over. Over the grass, it had a bit of a softer sound. Then as we got to a rockier dirt type area, we started to hear some sounds of what you would expect, like when you would drive a car over some gravel, some gravelly kind of rolling sounds, and then that really tamped down and came into more of a pavement rolling kind of sound as we came onto the pavement, taxiing up here to this hangar. So that is another, just one of those really small details here on this map, and with the P-47, that really does make a big difference, because maybe the majority of players wouldn't notice that kind of thing, but for the minority that would, it's a very, very welcome addition. So let's go ahead and take another look at the P-47 from the outside here, and we can see that she is absolutely very gorgeous. The model is very nice, and players are going to have a lot of fun with this map and a lot of fun with P-47. My one gripe about the P-47 is it is simply just unflyable against the dogfight against the AI here in DCS. The World War II AI just needs a lot of work, and hopefully changes are coming down the pipeline soon, because as it stands right now, dogfighting against the AI just isn't fun. It's just kind of ridiculous. I tried to bring you guys a video of it, but I just got so frustrated that I just couldn't do it anymore, so I just went straight to ground attack. So I know a lot of people out there do agree with me, but I think that the P-47 and the channel map are still certainly worthwhile to pre-order and purchase once it comes out. And you guys will have a ton of fun sinking U-boats, shooting up Schnell boats, shooting up trains, trying to take out Panzers with 50 cals, which doesn't work too well, going after armored cars, trucks, you name it, here on the channel map, and of course going after V1 sites, which will be a lot of fun as well. So I'm really looking forward to it, and hope you guys enjoyed the video, and fly safe as always, guys.